Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Jill Tolles joins us. She is the Executive Director of the Guinn Center, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
The casino industry drove Nevada's economy for decades. By the 1990s, however, the state's sole industry was in sharp decline. Many were losing their homes, many were leaving the state. Is Reno on track to be the Detroit of the West? Was an October 2010 Reno Gazette-Journal headline. Nevada knew it was time for a change and a time to diversify. Story County took that lead, took risks, invested tens of millions transforming its desert into a place of opportunity and a future for Nevada families needing something new. That desert now provides thousands of high-paying tech, advanced manufacturing, and energy careers at companies like Tesla, Panasonic, Google, Switch, and Redwood Materials. Story County transformed Northern Nevada forever, and the tide of opportunity has raised all vessels through construction contracts, high-paying careers, and the power of payroll. Tens of millions have been generated in sales and property tax, permits, and other revenues for Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and for all of Nevada. Enough, in fact, to generate a surplus after public services are provided. And best of all, a sustainable economic climate has been created, enabling our children to stay in Nevada and live prosperous lives in their home state. Story County, improving Northern Nevada one industry at a time.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we are pleased to welcome back to the program now former Assemblywoman Jill Tolles, who is now the Executive Director of the Guinn Center. And one of the things that's interesting to me about Kenny Guinn was that even though he ran as a Republican, also raised a ton of money, $3 million, for the first time we saw that kind of money in a governor's race in Nevada. But if you talk to his wife, Dima, she'll say to you that he really wasn't a politician. He was more interested in doing good for the state. And I've always taken that to heart, and in knowing Kenny. And I always loved the fact that he was somebody who would come on this program, he would do a half an hour on the show, and then talk to us for 45 minutes in the hallway. I mean, totally accessible and a very nice man. So, I mean, I'm sure there were people who pick at his governorship in different ways, and that's understandable, but for me, a very nice man. So what did you expect when you took over the center, and what direction do you want to take it in?
Great. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. We've known each other a long time. It's fun to be back here in this new capacity, and I love that you started with Kenny Guinn, because this is the Kenny Guinn Center for Policy Research Priorities, and he left such a legacy of first being known for knowing the budget backwards and forwards, being a champion for education with the Millennium Scholarship, but also, to your point, being a governor who really looked at the policy before the politics. And Dima was dead on, that he just truly was a good Nevadan, and so a great Nevadan. And so it's an honor to be able to be the executive director of a center that's named after him, and I feel the weight of that. Just the weight of making sure that we live up to that name in the way that we conduct our research. So about 2 years ago, I told my husband this would be my dream job. I've always been a fan of the Guinn Center and the policy research that they do. As a legislator, I'll give an example, because maybe not everyone's familiar with what the Guinn Center does. It's been around for 10 years. It's a statewide, evidence-based, nonpartisan policy research center. We became affiliated with the University of Nevada in 2021, and over 100 policy briefs and reports that go to the main audience, 63 plus 1. Those 63 legislators plus the governor to help inform better decision-making in our state. And so in my last session in 21, there was a report on federal grants and examining why Nevada is 45th in the nation at getting our taxpayer dollars back into the state. And that's our money that could be used for education and for healthcare. And why are we not doing a better job, and what's some best evidence-based best practices? And that turned into AB 445, sponsored by Danielle Moreno. I voted for it because I respected the work of the Guinn Center, and that led to the Office of Federal Assistance in the Governor's Office. So that's the kind of work we do, just as a snapshot for people who aren't as familiar with it. So you asked about coming into this role as the executive director of the Guinn Center. And it has a phenomenal background and a legacy. Leaders before me that are big shoes to fill, Nancy Brune and Dale Urquiaga, and then Dana Bennett served as interim while they did a national search before I was one of 22 candidates. I had to go through the whole interview process, nail biting, just like everybody else, whittled down to 5 and then 2, and then was so grateful to be given this opportunity. But when I did go into this process, realizing that over the last few years, because of the pandemic and then leadership changes, all because these phenomenal leaders before me went on to do other great things for the state and the cities that they reside in, that it needed a bit of a rebuild. And so getting in there, realized that this was going to take some time to build off that legacy, but also an opportunity to rebuild some structures to make sure that it's an institution that's going to last for decades and hopefully generations, to uphold that name and be worthy of the name.
One of the things that you have to deal with is that we live in a much more polarized world than when Kenny Guinn was governor. And how difficult is that going to be able to be that nonpartisan group and maintain that, because no matter what you do, you're going to come under attack for that. So you got to be prepared for it, obviously.
Absolutely. And it's like joining an AA program, right? The first step of recovery is admitting that we all have a problem. So, we all have biases, and so recognizing that everybody comes to the table with biases is the first step. To say that we're going to forever be without biases would be folly. And so what we've done is spend the last 6 months spending a lot of time on our structures and our systems and our policies and procedures to put in checks and balances from start to finish. So the Guinn Center was started by philanthropists who looked at our state from different ideological perspectives, both sides of the aisle, and our board represents multiple ideological perspectives as a first check and balance for how we approach our work. But on top of that, there's some other things that we've done, like separate out our fundraising side from the research side of the house. And I brought on an amazing team. Our retired research director, Mike Stewart from LCB, 27 years with the state, nonpartisan perspective, knows the state inside out from a research perspective. And then my assistant director, who handles the business and operations, Christine Callagher, who came to us from media and the Chamber of Commerce. And then some other things that we're doing is building out an advisory council with subject matter experts from different perspectives, different stakeholder input around each of the topics that we study: education, healthcare, the economy, natural land and resources, and then governance. And by having that checks and balances to be able to look at everything from how we pick our topics to the kinds of questions we ask, to a peer review at the end, and even adding things like limitations to the studies that we provide, or areas for additional research and questions to ask in the future, are all some of those good methodological procedures to put in place to make sure that even at the end of a report, if the stakeholders don't love what the data shows, they can stand behind the credibility of it.
So you have an interesting past, because you taught at UNR, you taught at the Judicial College, and then you also became an assemblywoman.
Right.
How difficult was it for you as a freshman assemblywoman to deal with the onslaught of bills and topics that came your way? And could you have used what you were about to develop in a beneficial way?
Yes, and I think that my background teaching, I've been teaching communication studies, critical thinking, how to look for fallacies in logic and reasoning, how to look for bias in the information that you use to craft your arguments in argumentation and debate. And then with the Judicial College, I teach judges how to look at an issue from all sides. So all of those things prepared me to be a legislator, but also to step into this position. Because I believe that it leads to better outcomes when we look at an issue.
I guess
Yep.
really my question was directed at the fact that for any freshman legislator,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming when you walk in through the doors of a legislature to deal with what comes down the pike.
Completely. So that's one of the reasons why I did look to the Guinn Center for their research, and why I believe down into my core this is so incredibly important. That in today's day and age, and I know firsthand as an assembly person, as a former assembly person, that you have a lot of special interest groups, you have lobbyists, you have national agendas, you have partisan agendas, and each of those play a role in the ecosystem. But to be able to have a trustworthy statewide place to turn to look for, give me the facts, give me the evidence, give me that independent, nonpartisan research that I can go to, and hopefully all those other stakeholders that I just mentioned will find the research so credible that they will then go to that to help with their advocacy efforts. But it can be that one trusted source. And so I know how deeply we need this in the state, which is why I'm doing this. I didn't do this because I was looking for a job. I did this because I truly believe that this is something that we need in our state to hold up, to be strong and trustworthy for decades and generations. And it is overwhelming as a legislator.
I would say to you that the number one question that people ask me is, where do I get a reliable, trustworthy source of news? And invariably I tell them you have to read all kinds of different publications to be able to get a balance. But it would be great to have a resource that I could trust right off the bat, knowing that this is where it came from. So I think that this could be a great resource for news media as well.
100%. And we want to be a partner. That's one of the things that I love about this position is we are here to be a partner, to be a benefit, to be a resource to the media, to the Legislative Counsel Bureau that does amazing work in the state, nonpartisan research, but they don't have the capacity and oftentimes the personnel to do original deep dive, going into the communities, holding those focus groups, doing those surveys, doing that deep dive data mining to pull together and then analyze that and create those reports that we do. So we don't just do this work in a vacuum. We have our own researchers on our team, but we also partner with our NSHE partners. We have this incredible brain trust of faculty and graduate and doctoral students who are doing deep dive research. Why not take that? And I like to joke that we're the Red Bull of research. We give it wings, right? So why not take that incredible brain trust in our state that exists already and then translate that to information that legislators can use so that they could look at the evidence-based recommendations that come out of Guinn Center original research and then our partners in NSHE that we can then present to them to say, I like recommendations 2, 4, 17. Those are going to be my bill draft requests. And then instead of the Guinn Center coming forward in support or opposition, we come to the table to help give the methodology, the findings, and the evidence behind those recommendations as experts at the table, not as lobbyists or as advocates, but as that resource.
Well, it's been interesting over the years to watch the Nevada system of higher education in its various forms and what portions were utilized by the general public, by the media, by business in terms of, mining always, was involved because of the Mackey School of Mines. But there are so many other divisions from DRI, which is the biggest secret in the state of Nevada, and yet it's recognized worldwide. You have people like Bo Bernhard in Las Vegas who are doing incredible things in terms of now economic development, but with the Gaming Institute before that. And now you have a governor, a former governor, in Brian Sandoval, who has this incredible experience. I can't wait to talk to him, by the way, about his experience at the legislature on the other side of a table, where instead of being governor, now he's somebody going to the table and saying, hey, these are our needs.
Right. And a former legislator himself.
Correct.
He's served in all three branches of government, and so
I believe
and now the fourth branch, right? If you,
I don't think that there's any area that former Governor Sandoval has not served in. I'm sure if I check with Luther Mack, we'd find out he worked at McDonald's at some point as well.
Probably.
Let's take a break and we'll get into some more of these areas after this time out. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the air conditioning back on today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why sweat for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your air conditioning fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
Big R in Sparks is located on Bering Boulevard next to Smith's and across from Reed High School for workwear and everyday wear. Evaporative coolers, outdoor living, Weber's, Traeger's, and Lodge. Fill your propane tanks here. Big R on Bering Boulevard in Sparks next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. Big R. Hardware, clothing, and a whole lot more.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Jill Toll. She is Executive Director of the Guinn Center. So you ran through a whole list here. I'd like to try to hit a couple of these different areas that you want to have expertise in. Obviously, economic issues, education issues, health, social policy, natural resources, land and water, and governance policy. Yep. Those are a lot of areas. Now, my understanding is that you plan to hire directors for each of these units to be able to run that. Explain how that's going to work.
So another structural change we made, and as I mentioned in the earlier segment, it's a rebuild, and so one of the things that I did with the board was talk about a 3 to 5 year strategy, really rebuilding over the next 3 years. We're already halfway through this first year of the process, and then refining and expanding from there. So one of the reasons why people may say, well, how come we didn't hear from you more during this last legislative session? That was very intentional. It was intentional because we wanted to take advantage of this time to dive deep into those structures that I talked about and those systems and processes to watch out for bias so that we can stay independent and nonpartisan. And then we're rebuilding the team, rebuilding our funding and our strategies. And then next year, you're going to see a lot more of the fruit of that labor in the research we're producing, so that by the 2025 session, you'll see us promoting more of that research, that evidence-based recommendations. And so we, in the process of rebuilding our structure, realized that there was a need to bring in experts in each one of those categories. So instead of just hiring maybe junior researchers or even senior researchers, we moved towards a director model. And so we're currently recruiting for a director of education, a director of health and social policy. We already have an amazing director of economic and fiscal policy, Meredith Levine, who does our work, and then the other categories, natural land resources and governance. And so each of those directors will be that leading expert in our organization and hopefully a resource to the state so that the media could bring on that director of education to speak to not only the research we're doing, but current trends and to help to then facilitate the work that we do with our NG partners, our faculty, our graduate students, our PhDs, and our subject matter experts to conduct our work.
So, you know, just to take one of those topics like natural resources, land, water, etc. That is such a strife-ridden area. I mean, people are pro and con to the max. How do you deal with that and take out the bias?
Right, so that person has to have a unique set of qualities. They have to be a collaborator. They have to come to the issues with curiosity like any good researcher would. They have to be able to pull together the different stakeholders, and that's why we're building out an advisory council in each one of those areas so that you have those different voices at the table to review the work and offer their commentary. And then just to be able to utilize the best research methods possible to pull out the facts and the data and then lay that out. And again, we're not there, for example, we do ballot measure explainers. We're not there to tell the public how to vote, to be for or against, or to come out on one side or the other. We're there to present all the information, all the facts, so that the decision makers, in that case the public, or even state agency leaders or the legislators or the governor and the executive branch, can make the best policy decisions moving forward.
You know, as you're talking, it kind of makes me think about the United States Supreme Court, which is where you get a ruling, but you also get dissents. Exactly. Are you looking to do something like that where...
And that's inspired by my work with judges. I teach collaborative decision making with state Supreme Court justices and appellate court judges, and it's about how to have that majority opinion, but also allow a voice for dissent. So that's where you may see, where appropriate, in some of our studies, you may see a section on limitations or questions for further research, so that there's a place for that. So that's part of how decision makers can make better decisions. In the Supreme Court example, state Supreme Courts or federal, that helps to lead to better interpretations of the law. And every project is only going to be a piece of work for the period of time that it's there. It can't be an end-all, be-all, because dynamics change and the demographics change and the issues change. So it's, I think, intellectually honest to be able to bring some of that to that work that we do.
Plus, it's a snapshot in time.
It is a snapshot in time.
Let's take another break and we'll be right back.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology like this electronic eye that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you, because trucks move America forward.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Jill Toll. She's the executive director of the Guinn Center. So one of the biggest issues, I'm sure, is going to be not only the raising of funding, but questions about where that money comes from and how that affects the research.
Right, great question. So we are funded primarily in two ways, through contract work and through philanthropic donations. So the contract work oftentimes comes through the state or federal grant funding dollars, and that's, for example, we have a 2-year study with the Department of Education looking at how the per pupil funding actually laid out. We are going to roll that out across the state, look at where it landed by each of the weighted categories, and then how federal funds layer on top of that, community-raised funds or parent-raised funds, just to give a more whole picture. That's an example of the kind of work that we do for the state. Sometimes we'll take contract work with a broad variety of stakeholders, but it would have to be broad and general enough, not one specific corporation or special interest group paying for a research project, because it gives that perception of bias, even if you have all the best checks and balances in place. And the other way is just through philanthropic giving. So for people to help to support the mission as a whole, because they believe in the need for this in our state, and for them to help sponsor those directors. And so we're actively fundraising for sponsoring each of those directors. And once again, not just one sponsor, but a coalition of sponsors.
Right.
So it's nice and balanced.
And that's where we have to leave it for now.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to, over the next couple of years, hearing lots more about the Guinn Center from you and from your directors.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're always welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
7 at 7 is a newscast built for your smartphone. It's a 7-minute newscast available every weekday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at lvrj.com. We don't waste your time, and we give you the day's top stories.
We at the RJ have noticed some similarities between us and a certain BTS character, RJ.
Plus the latest in Las Vegas business, weather, health, and entertainment news. 7 at 7 streaming now on your smartphone.
Carson Valley, it's your place for the good times. Carson Valley.
Calamity. It lurks around every corner. Or not. That's why UMC Quick Care is around every corner, with locations around the valley. UMC Quick Care, for all your small calamities.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Event Center sits at the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. 2 floors of meeting and event space are ideal for groups and conventions. Stay in one of 200 luxurious rooms and suites. Brand your event throughout the property. Flexible event spaces make for easy planning and personalization. Take over the entire hotel with a full buyout option.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. You can catch us online 24 hours a day at nevadanewsmakers.com, or you can download the podcast wherever you like to get your podcast. We'll see you on the next broadcast.